March 1968, the middle of the Pacific Ocean. A Soviet ballistic missile submarine, the K-129, vanishes. It is carrying 3 nuclear missiles and the Soviet Navy's most secret codebooks. The Soviet Navy panics. They launch a massive search fleet. They scour the ocean for months, but they find nothing. They assume the sub is lost forever, swallowed by the abyss. But they were wrong. The Americans had found it. Using a secret network of underwater listening devices, the U.S. Navy heard the implosion. They knew exactly where the K-129 was. It was sitting 16,000 feet deep 3 miles down on the ocean floor. The CIA looked at that wreck and saw an opportunity. If they could recover the codebooks, they could read Soviet communications for years. But how do you lift a 2,000-ton steel coffin from 3 miles underwater without the Russians noticing? You don't build a crane, you build a lie. Welcome to Shadowworks. Today we are opening the file on Project Azorian, the billion-dollar heist to steal a nuclear submarine. The engineering challenge was impossible. Woo! To lift that much weight from that depth, you needed a ship bigger than anything in existence. You needed a giant claw. And you needed to do it in broad daylight. How do you build a massive, suspicious ship without the Soviet spies realizing it's a weapon? You find a crazy billionaire. Enter Howard Hughes, the Elon Musk of the 1970s, reclusive, eccentric, and obsessively secretive. The CIA approached him with a plan. They announced that Hughes was building a ship to mine manganese nodules, rocks on the seafloor worth millions. It was the perfect cover. Why was the ship so huge? Because Hughes does everything huge. Why was it so secret? Because Hughes is paranoid about competitors. The media bought it. The public bought it. Even the Soviets bought it. The ship was christened the Hughes Glomar Explorer. It was a marvel. Inside the hull was a massive moon pool, a giant sliding door in the bottom of the ship. This allowed them to lower a claw, grab the sub, and pull it inside the ship so no one would see it when it surfaced. The claw was nicknamed Clementine. It was built by Lockheed Martin in secret. It looked like a giant robotic hand, designed to cradle the fragile hull of the Soviet sub. In 1974, 6 years after the sub sank, the Glomar Explorer set sail. It parked directly over the wreck. It wasn't smooth sailing. A Soviet tugboat showed up. They circled the Glomar Explorer. They watched it. But they didn't shoot. They just saw a crazy American billionaire mining for rocks. They had no idea that 16,000 feet below them, a giant claw was latching onto their dead ship. The lift began. Clementine grabbed the K-129. The winches groaned. Inch by inch, the nuclear submarine rose from the darkness. They got it halfway up, 9,000 feet from the bottom, and then disaster struck. The sub was more fragile than they thought. Several of the claw's fingers snapped. The K-129 broke in half. The CIA watched in horror on the monitors as the rear 2/3 of the sub containing the nuclear missiles and the codebooks slid back down into the abyss. They only managed to recover the front section. Inside the recovered section, they found the bodies of 6 Soviet sailors. In a moment of incredible respect, the CIA gave them a full military burial at sea, filmed in secret, and played the Soviet anthem. Was it a failure? They didn't get the missiles. They didn't get the codes. They spent $800 million for the front half of a rusty boat. But the legacy of Project Azorian isn't the sub. It's the cover-up. When journalists finally sniffed out the story and asked the CIA if it was true, the CIA issued a statement that is now famous. We can neither confirm nor deny the existence of the materials you are requesting. It was the birth of the Glomar response, a phrase used by governments ever since to say absolutely nothing. The Glomar Explorer proved that with enough money, you can steal anything, even history.